Have you ever wondered what it truly means when you judge someone else? Imagine this. You're walking down the street and you see a man dressed in a way you consider strange. Instinctively, a thought crosses your mind. What a mess. He clearly doesn't care about himself. Or maybe you're scrolling through social media and you spot someone posting about their achievements and something inside you whispers, "They're so arrogant." It happens quickly, almost automatically. You might even justify it to yourself. "I'm just being honest," or "I'm calling it like I see it." But what if I told you that your judgment isn't about them at all? What if, as Sigmund Freud might say, your mind is using that judgment as a defense mechanism not to evaluate the world, but to avoid seeing something inside yourself? Freud once said, "We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unfair as when we judge." Judgment isn't clarity, it's camouflage. Every time you point the finger outward, a deeper truth remains hidden. Because what if, just what, if you weren't reacting to them, but to a part of yourself you've worked very hard to forget? That annoyance you feel? That criticism you voice in your head? It could be your unconscious saying, "This person reminds me of something I don't want to accept about myself." Carl Jung called it the shadow, the rejected, uncomfortable parts of our psyche we push into darkness. Freud called it projection, a psychological trick the ego plays to survive. So the next time you feel that quick judgment spark inside you, pause. Ask yourself, am I really seeing them? Or am I just refusing to see me? Because if Freud was right, then every time you judge someone else, you're not just looking outward. You're staring into a mirror and refusing to recognize your own reflection. Before we dive deeper into the hidden mechanics of your mind, take a moment to support this channel. If this message is resonating with you even just a little, hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I release the next video that could shift the way you see yourself and the world around you. Thank you for being here. Now let's go deeper. You've probably seen it before. Maybe it happened at work, maybe at the dinner table, or maybe if you're brave enough to admit it, it came from your own mouth. Let's paint a common scene. A group meeting at work. One team member is late delivering their part of a project. Before the person even sits down, someone in the group mutters under their breath, "Typical. Just lazy. Always behind. Always with an excuse." The words come quickly, with disgust masked as righteousness. The accuser shakes their head like a seasoned judge, convinced of the verdict. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This same person just weeks ago missed a deadline too. But when it was their turn, they didn't call it laziness. They called it burnout. They blamed the system. They said, "I'm just going through a lot right now." They asked for grace, and they got it. So why such a different reaction this time? Because projection doesn't recognize fairness. It recognizes a threat. And it strikes whenever the ego is cornered. Let's zoom out. Social media is a breeding ground for this kind of reaction. Every scroll offers a new opportunity to pass judgment. She just wants attention. He thinks he's better than everyone. Why would anyone post something like that? But dig deeper. When you see someone flaunting success and your gut tightens, what is that really? Is it about them or is it about you? Maybe they remind you of a dream you've abandoned. Maybe their confidence reflects your buried insecurity. Maybe their risk-taking exposes your fear of failure. We rarely hate what we truly understand. What we hate is what we fear we might be. Now, think about home life. Picture a father criticizing his teenage son for being too emotional. He scoffs at the tears, demands toughness, and tells the boy to man up. On the surface, it looks like discipline. But peel back the layers, and what do you find? A man who spent decades suppressing his own pain. A man who equates vulnerability with weakness. A man projecting his rejected emotions onto his child, punishing his son for carrying what he himself was never allowed to feel. This is not an isolated behavior. This is a psychological pattern Freud spent his life trying to map out. Freud called this projection one of the most powerful and deceptive defense mechanisms of the human psyche. According to Freud, the ego is constantly defending its fragile sense of identity. When thoughts or emotions arise that threaten that identity, anger, jealousy, shame, desire, it doesn't always process them honestly. Instead, it banishes them to the unconscious. But these feelings don't just disappear, they reappear, not as inner truths but as external enemies. In simple terms, when the ego can't handle a truth about the self, it accuses someone else of it. You've heard the phrase, "You spot it, you got it." Freud would say, "You judge it because you refuse to face it." That colleague you call lazy, maybe they mirror your own fear of inadequacy. That friend you label too emotional, maybe they reflect the sadness you've spent years suppressing. That influencer you mock for being fake, maybe they echo your hidden craving for approval. Freud believed that projection is not a conscious act. You don't sit there thinking, "I hate my insecurity, so I'll insult theirs." It happens beneath awareness, automatically, instinctively. The ego sees a reflection of your rejected self in someone else, and it goes into defense mode. And the more intense the judgment, the more likely it is that you're projecting. But it doesn't stop there. Carl Jung expanded on this idea and introduced the concept of the shadow, the collection of all the parts of ourselves we reject, deny, or ignore. The shadow is not evil, it is simply unintegrated. It's made of qualities we were told were wrong or unacceptable, emotions we weren't allowed to feel, behaviors we were shamed out of. As we grow, we push these parts into the darkness. And what happens to what we suppress? It finds a way out. Usually, in the form of a projection. Freud laid the foundation. Projection is the ego's way of defending itself. Jung took it further. The shadow demands to be seen, and until we face it, we will continue to see it in others. So when you feel that flash of judgment, pause. When you feel anger that seems disproportionate, pause. Ask yourself, not what's wrong with them, but rather, what does this bring up in me? This isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about reclaiming self-awareness. Because every judgment is a signpost. Every harsh word is a message, not about them, but about you. Freud once said, "What we hate in others is often a reflection of what we cannot tolerate in ourselves." Jung would add, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And so, the people you despise, the traits you condemn, the patterns that trigger you, they are not random. They are mirrors, not of who you pretend to be, but of who you've tried not to be. And until you learn to face that reflection, you'll keep mistaking your shadow for someone else's flaw. Let's go deeper. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, believed that our conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface lies a vast reservoir of unconscious thoughts, memories, and instincts. These repressed elements don't vanish, they influence us in ways we can't see. One of the key mechanisms through which this unconscious material affects our behavior is what Freud called projection. Projection, in Freud's model, is a defense mechanism. When your ego encounters a thought, feeling, or impulse that is too uncomfortable or threatening to accept, it pushes it out of conscious awareness. But instead of staying buried, This disowned material is unconsciously projected onto someone else. In other words, you see in them what you refuse to acknowledge in yourself. For example, if you harbor aggressive impulses but were taught that anger is unacceptable, you may unconsciously view others as hostile or aggressive without realizing you're actually reacting to your own repressed anger. Freud described the human mind as being mostly hidden. He famously said, "The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. That means the visible part of ourselves, the version we think we know, is just a fragment. The true forces that drive us live underneath, unseen and unexamined." And this is where Carl Jung takes Freud's foundation and builds something even more profound. Jung agreed with Freud about the unconscious, but he expanded the idea. He believed that buried within the psyche was something he called the shadow. The shadow is not just a place where uncomfortable thoughts are stored. It is the entire collection of parts of ourselves that we have rejected, desires, emotions, instincts, and traits we were told were bad, ugly, or unacceptable. These aspects don't disappear. Instead, they form a second self, an invisible twin always with us, always influencing us. Jung wrote, "The shadow is everything about ourselves that we have no wish to be. It includes everything we suppress in order to be accepted: our rage, our jealousy, our sadness, our sensuality, even our brilliance. The more we try to be good, the bigger our shadow becomes." Now here's where the connection between Freud and Jung becomes powerful. Freud's projection is the action. The moment we deny something within ourselves and cast it onto another person. Jung's shadow is the content, the suppressed qualities that fuel that projection. Together they form a cycle. First, you push something out of awareness. It becomes part of your shadow. Then, to protect your ego from the discomfort of that repression, you project that quality outward onto others. This is why judgment feels so justified. You truly believe you're observing others clearly, but in reality, you're filtering them through the lens of your own unresolved inner world. Jung called this the process of disowning, and he warned that the more you deny your shadow, the more it controls you. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So when we judge someone harshly, reactively, self-righteously, we're not analyzing them. We're avoiding ourselves. That's the truth no one wants to admit. Judgment is not insight, it's avoidance. Imagine a woman who despises another for being too loud, too confident, too bold. But deep down, this woman was taught that her own voice was dangerous. That being assertive would make her unloved. And so, she silenced herself and now punishes in others what she was never allowed to express. Or a man who mocks others for being emotional or vulnerable. Perhaps he was raised to believe that tears are a weakness, that sensitivity makes you weak. His shadow holds grief, tenderness, even fear, but instead of facing it, he attacks it when it appears in others. When we project, we aren't dealing with reality. We're dealing with our version of reality, distorted by the parts of ourselves we've refused to meet. And here's the danger. When projections go unrecognized, they become permanent stories. You don't just judge others, you define them. And in doing so, you disconnect from truth, from empathy, and most tragically, from your own growth. But there is a way out. Freud taught us to observe our reactions, to treat them as clues. Jung urged us to integrate the shadow, not destroy it, but embrace it, understand it, and make it conscious. Because the moment you realize that your judgment is a mirror, not a verdict, you begin to reclaim your wholeness. You start seeing others more clearly, not as threats or flaws, but as fellow humans. And more importantly, you begin to see yourself Not just the parts you like, but the full, messy, brilliant spectrum of who you are. Freud helped us understand how we project. Jung taught us why. Together, they offer something far more powerful than judgment. They offer the path to self-integration, and that path doesn't begin with changing the world. It begins the moment you ask, what part of me have I left behind in the dark? Let's pause here not to reflect on the world outside, but to turn inward. Let me ask you something. What if the person you can't stand is actually a mirror? That coworker you find arrogant, that friend you quietly resent, that influencer you mock online. What if they're not showing you who they are, but showing you a disowned part of yourself? What if every judgment you've made wasn't an observation but a reflection? I know that's uncomfortable, maybe even offensive. We're not taught to think this way. We're taught to label, to categorize, to separate ourselves from what we don't like. But what if the very things that irritate you and others live inside you? That's not a theory. That's a psychological fact. And here's the real question. Are you willing to look? Because change doesn't start when you fix the world. It starts when you face the world inside you. The next time you feel that tightening in your chest, that flash of annoyance, that burning urge to roll your eyes or talk behind someone's back, don't act. Don't react. Just pause and ask yourself, what is this reaction trying to show me? What part of me feels threatened right now? What would happen if I admitted that I'm seeing something I've hidden from myself? That moment right there is your invitation to awaken. It's not about shame. This isn't a call to beat yourself up for judging. Judgment is human. Projection is universal. We all do it. The work isn't to eliminate it, it's to recognize it, reclaim it, and grow from it. So how do you begin? Start with awareness. Bring consciousness to what has always been automatic. And here are 3 powerful practices you can begin today. 1. Journal without filters. Each night or whenever you feel emotionally triggered, grab a notebook. Write freely. Start with, who annoyed me today? What did I think about them? Why did that reaction feel so strong? Then go deeper. Ask, have I ever done the thing I just judged? Do I secretly fear becoming like that? What would it mean if that trait lived in me too? Don't censor. Don't pretty it up. Let it be raw, messy, uncomfortable. Because in that mess, you'll find your truth. You might realize that the lazy person triggered your own fear of not being productive enough, or that the loud person poked at your suppressed desire to take up more space. In the mirror of others, you'll meet your shadow. 2. Sit in stillness. Meditate with intention. You don't need a guru or a retreat center. Just sit down, close your eyes, breathe. Then ask, what am I running from? Bring to mind someone you judged recently. Let their image appear in your mind. Then silently ask, what about them bothers me? Where does that live inside me? You're not trying to fix it. You're simply witnessing. Carl Jung believed that the path to wholeness isn't paved with positivity, but with integration. That means feeling what you'd rather numb, seeing what you've denied, and making space for the parts of you that have been left behind. This kind of meditation isn't about escaping, it's about entering the parts of your psyche that have been waiting to be seen. 3. Get professional support. Therapy as a mirror. Sometimes the shadow is too slippery to catch alone. That's where therapy comes in, not as a place to get fixed, but as a mirror. A space where your patterns can be gently revealed, where your projections can be safely explored. A good therapist won't tell you what to think. They'll help you see with clarity, compassion, and courage. Freud once said, being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. But honesty requires a container. Therapy can be that container. It's not a weakness to ask for help, it's wisdom. The truth is, we all carry shadows. We all project. We all judge. But very few of us ever stop to ask why. Even fewer have the courage to look within and say, maybe the enemy I see in you is actually a part of me I've never dared to face. So the invitation is simple. Start watching your judgments, not to silence them, but to listen. Because underneath every sharp reaction is a soft truth trying to reach you. A piece of your soul knocking at the door saying, please let me back in. That's where healing begins. Not with more control, but with more curiosity. Not by perfecting yourself, but by recovering what you've lost piece by piece, shadow by shadow. You will never escape judgment until you stop running from your own reflection. That's the final truth. Not poetic, not philosophical, psychological, spiritual, existential. Judgment isn't power. It is an insight. It's a mask, a distraction, a smokescreen between you and your shadow. We've been taught that when we judge, we are standing above someone more evolved, more aware, more righteous. But the real effect, it doesn't elevate you. It blinds you. Because every time you cast a shadow over someone else, you deepen the one inside you. The more you reject, the more you project. And the more you project, the further you drift from who you really are. The moment you say, I would never be like that, your unconscious whispers, but you already are. You just haven't met that part of yourself yet. And the longer you deny it, the more it will control you from behind the curtain. Carl Jung didn't say you should destroy your shadow. He didn't say to silence it, fix it, or shame it. He said to face it, to bring light into the dark, not by erasing what's hidden, but by daring to look. Because healing doesn't come from perfection. It comes from wholeness. And wholeness means integration. It means saying, yes, this too is me. The envy, the fear, the shame, the selfishness, the pride, the parts of you you were told were unacceptable. Not to justify them, not to act them out, but to know them, understand them, welcome them back into the circle of your humanity. The most dangerous person is not the one who has darkness. It's the one who refuses to see it. And that's where most of us are stuck. We point fingers, we build walls, we cling to identities that make us feel safe. But inside, there's a storm brewing. Because what we suppress never disappears, it just waits. And the cost of avoiding it is your peace. So what if today you chose something different? What if, instead of reaching for another opinion, another judgment, another label, you reached for your own truth? What if you stopped asking, what's wrong with them, and started asking, what am I afraid to see in me? That question is your turning point. It's the crack in the wall where light starts to pour in. The first sign that your soul is ready to return. Because here's the truth no one told you growing up. You are not just your strengths. You are not just your best moments. You are not just the version of yourself you show to the world. You are everything. The noble and the flawed. The kind and the cruel. The light and the shadow, and only when you embrace all of it will you feel whole. So here's the invitation from me to you. Don't just observe, reflect. Don't just see others, see yourself in them. Don't just dare to look inward, because in that space between judgment and self-awareness is where transformation begins. And no, it won't be easy. Looking into your shadow is messy, painful, and humbling, but it's also liberating. It's where you finally stop performing, Where do you stop editing yourself to be loved? Where you stop fighting reality and start accepting your own complexity. And from that place, something beautiful happens. Compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. Because the more you recognize your shadow, the less you need to project it. The more you understand your own wounds, the less you react to other people's stage. The more you make peace within, the less you make war outside. And isn't that what we're all longing for? Not just clarity, but peace. Not just strength, but wholeness. So take a breath. Let go of the illusion of being better than anyone. Let go of the idea that judgment protects you. And step into the radical, humbling, powerful act of seeing yourself fully. That's where real freedom lives. In the parts you were told to hide. In the truths you were taught to fear. In the mirror you've spent your whole life avoiding. It's time to stop avoiding. It's time to come home. If this video opened something inside you, if even one idea made you pause, reflect, or see yourself differently, then take a moment to like this video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next video that just might wake up another part of you. And I want to hear from you. What part of today's message hit you the hardest? Was it about projection, the shadow, or something you saw in yourself for the first time? Drop it in the comments. Your words might be the mirror someone else needs.